This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our final Mono Police Services Board meeting for 2022. Welcome, and once again, welcome to James, who's now a regular member of our group here, or for as long as this group lasts anyway. For starters, let's ask if there's any pecuniary interests to be registered for today's meeting. Having seen none, I'll move forward. Do we have any members of the public that are on the call? Okay, moving forward, the agenda, I'd like to amend the agenda to add, I forgot this and I apologize to James, but after the matters arising from the minutes, can we have a bullet for Community Policing Committee update? And I have one more item under new business, which is billing statement discussion. Do I have a motion to approve that agenda as amended or any other additions? Okay, moved by Wayne, seconded by John. All in favor, opposed, and that's carried. So moving right along, approval of the minutes of the meeting as amended from Wednesday, September 14th, 2022. Any comments or discussion? A motion to approve, John, and seconded by Wayne. All in favor, opposed, and that's carried. Matters arising from the minutes, I didn't really have anything other than the status updates. So unless anybody has any matters arising from those minutes other than the status updates, we can move to James's report. Fire away, James. Nothing to report? Okay.
We're continuing. Kathy and I are putting our articles on the website, and I think we picked up a couple of more subscribers. But I'm still waiting to hear back from the gentleman up in Rosemont who was interested in setting up a committee. And I was going to try and get him to have input as well as one of the authors on the site. But he's gone kind of silent, and I don't really want to start chasing him up and saying, "Hey, how come you're not talking to us?"
Sure. And James, they're certainly invited. The chairs of those committees are invited to join us on these police board meetings should they wish to come online and see what happens.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that Kathy would probably be interested in doing that. I'll mention that to her. She usually contacts me when she publishes her article around the beginning of the month. So probably in the next week or so, she'll be submitting. I'll just make a note to say if you want to join in, and I can either forward her the link here, or would I get in touch with Cheyenne to add her onto the list?
Well, she should be able to just go onto the town website and book onto the call.
Follow the link from there. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm enjoying the postings that you've been putting in, the different tips, etc. So yeah, I have been
we're trying to get that it reflects what's in the community, which is why I'd rather get people from those different localities more involved to say, we're missing this or we need this done, rather than just sort of complaining when they have a general meeting and say, how come nobody ever comes out and checks up on what we're doing? So if they have that as a soapbox that they can stand up on there, that might help.
Yeah, and I've been reposting them on the Mono community page as well, the Mono group page. So they're getting a pretty wide audience anyway. Okay,
and they do have the option, if somebody visits and they read it, they can share it on their own social media if they want to forward the link there. There are buttons, they can just pop it and send it along. So we may build up a bit more traffic.
Very good. Motion to receive James' report. Wayne and John, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Status updates, the towing bylaw. Your worship, is Mono done anything with that draft bylaw?
We made an effort to get council interested in it, and I can't recall how we left it, but Town of Orangeville basically will be administering it, and they want a modest fee for doing so. I think it's something that needs to be reintroduced to the new council once it's up and running. There's no doubt in my mind that it's a desirable thing to do, but it took forever to be produced, and then it sort of, I would hate to use the word fizzled, but I think that's where we're at now, and I think we need to sort of breathe some new life into it.
Yeah, considering we were the ones that were, vociferous about it, I think it would be kind of rotten if we didn't proceed through with it.
I agree.
Okay, any other discussion on the towing bylaw? Okay, the next item is the Black Cat, and I've forwarded you folks copies of the latest reports that came through from Chief Ward there, from Hockley Road, Airport Road, and Blind Line. Interesting, Blind Line, always seeing all kinds of stuff on the social media about the high speeds on Blind Line, etc. And the 85 percentile is only 84, so that's pretty good considering it's an 80-kilometer zone. I know we do have a lot of the young miscreants with the blacked out headlights and the desire to have noisy mufflers do frequent Blind Line a bit, but that the readings for that one were fairly low, and it surprised me. Hockley Road was about around 90 in the 85 percentile, so it's about what everybody drives, about 10 over the limit. Airport Road is always the high flyers, and we know that that's the standard problem. But the Black Cat is looks like that's a black cat behind your head there, John. Oh no, that's a gray cat. It's in the picture. The Black Cat is really serving its purposes from what I've seen, and of course, I guess it'll be retired for the winter, and we'll head off to Florida, where it'll be used by the state troopers down there during our winter break. And any comments on the Black Cat info?
Mr. Chair, we'll
Like,
just we'll try and get it out again one more time, maybe before the winter hits. But yeah, as we know, once the cold weather comes, the batteries don't stand up. But just for your information, you don't see him off camera, but Larry is here as well. So obviously, if there's any questions aimed at Larry, but again, it's nice. This information just shows us that a lot of the complaints we get are perceived complaints, not actual. And I mean, Larry, as we're going through it, Larry's over here going, yep, nope, yep. Like, so, Larry knows as well. And the information that we're getting is basically, the same as what he sees out there every day. So it's nice to have that confirmation.
Exactly.
Terry, I have a question. I saw the Black Cat equipment deployed on Mono Center Road, Dufferin Road 8. Do we have statistics back on that yet?
I do not, Your Worship. I have not seen it. I do not know. So once I get it, I'll make sure it's forwarded on, but I don't have anything on that one right now.
Okay.
Okay, that's very good. Any other Black Cat related questions? Any Calico Cat related questions? None. Okay, moving on. Joint Police Board meeting. As you will probably recall, we are tasked to host the next one. It was supposed to be in the fall, and we deferred that, pending elections, etc., and more news with respect to the detachment board makeup, which is the next item to discuss. So I'm thinking that if our secretary could reach out to the other boards and tentatively look at, usually we meet in April. So if you could look at, ask them about April 21st, which we would host. And it'll still be up in the air as to whether it'll be in person or virtual, depending on where we go over the next few months with flu-demics and pandemics and COVID-demics, etc. So if you could do that, Cheyenne, and just see if they have if they're interested in having a meeting at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, whatever you decide is more appropriate on April 21st, which is a Friday.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So with respect to the detachment board, I forwarded to you folks the latest information that came in with respect to that, and it looks like they went with our proposition, except for requiring a public appointee, a provincial appointee on each of the 4 boards. So that was the only disagreement they had with our proposals. So from what I read there, it doesn't look like this would be up and running until the towards the end of 2023 anyway. So we'll at least be able in April. Hopefully, if we can get Mr. Sprague to come to the meeting, we might have some better insight as to how that's progressing. Any questions or discussion on the detachment board? It's interesting. A friend, I attended a funeral a week or so ago, and a friend of mine is the chair of the police board in Prescott, and they had the same situation. They're trying to force them into one board for the entire detachment, and in fact, Prescott and there's another fairly large municipality in that area. They basically said, no way, we're a large municipality. We still want our own. They hadn't resolved it yet to their satisfaction, but I think these discussions are happening probably throughout the province. I think our 3M board will probably work out all right anyway. Mole, Mel, and Mull. Okay, any other discussions on detachment boards? So the old speed issue status update. I have an idea of how the mayor is going to respond to this, but have we had any lovely response from Caroline or any of the other folks?
Well, I guess everyone's aware that my latest letter, which was just over 1,000 words and basically covered all of the traffic and MTO issues in the town, was responded to by no, I can't come to Mono, and we'll see you soon. It was a very, very terse brush off, to put it mildly. I know that residents have been writing to her and to the MPP to essentially say that's unacceptable. There were a lot of points in that letter that have been raised repeatedly, and she keyed on the invitation to come up here on a Friday afternoon, early evening, to witness for herself what happens on Airport Road, and ignored everything else. So that's where matters stand. I have on my own personal website, johncreelman.com, put up a page which has all of the correspondence on this issue, along with the original report that we wrote and released 3 years ago, which frankly forms the basis of what we've been doing ever since. And it had 17 recommendations in it. And it was quite interesting to revisit that document after not having read it in 3 years. But I commend it to all of you to see where the town put together a community task force, came up with a number of recommendations, a significant one being the additional support to the OPP to expand our our coverage that went through council. So essentially what we implemented was what we could ourselves, but everything else in there is up to the province, and they've done nothing.
The question, Your Worship, we do have community safety zones within the town of Mono now. Why wouldn't we be looking at doing the automatic speed camera for these 40K zones?
Well, the significant one is alongside of Mono Amaranth School. There theoretically could be others created, but I've been very stubborn on that because I don't think we should have to declare community safety zones, especially out in the middle of nowhere, in order to be eligible for automated speed enforcement. I feel really strongly that the province has got to allow us to do this, no strings attached. There's a company out of Alberta called Global Traffic Solutions, and I've been in touch with them. They will come into your community and install the equipment, set up the mechanism for dealing with people caught speeding over a particular limit, and we're totally free to set that limit at whatever we want. This is basically a turnkey operation that they offer. We don't necessarily make any money on it, but we theoretically do get to establish it. I should mention that a week today, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, there is going to be a webinar put on by this company, and I'll send the information out to Cheyenne, and if Cheyenne, you could send it along to everyone. I think you'll find it really interesting. The other thing I've started doing is with the assistance of Global, and they basically are trying to sell their product throughout Ontario. They're aware of the various mayors and municipalities that have been fighting the same battle that we have, and we're now starting to network together. And I have another call with the mayor of North Dumfries on Thursday, a very dynamic individual. And we're going to try and put together some sort of delegation to the Roma conference on the issue of traffic safety. And we're trying to put together a number of like-minded municipal leaders to ask for a meeting with Caroline Mulrooney to put it to her directly as to why the province simply doesn't want to address this problem. So that's one of the things that I'm excited about, is that we're now starting to communicate with each other, and hopefully we'll find that we have many allies out there.
Okay. So Larry's actually our automatic speed enforcement camera on Hockley Road by the school there anyway, as his permanent.
So it's not out of the question, because we don't have to do anything with the speed limit. But as everyone knows, the rules now say you have to have a community safety zone, and it cannot be greater than 79 kilometers per hour in terms of the speed limit. So that eliminates most roads in the town of Mono. But it doesn't preclude it for long stretches of Hockley Road, and certainly in front of the school. Would be a candidate area. The other thing that Global and other providers will do is they have the ability of mobile devices. But with mobile devices, you still have to put up signage warning the oncoming vehicles that they're in a photo radar zone. So that makes it awkward as well, especially if you're moving around.
Is Mono Center not a community safety zone?
You're correct. Mono Center is a community safety zone for a portion of it in any event.
Yeah, that'd be a good spot. I think, we have a couple spots and potentially a couple more. I'm just wondering whether we should put our money where our mouth is when we're talking about the speed cameras and and do some or at least get one and move it around like Caledon does and just get at it and then the people, once we get some evidence and people start getting tickets, maybe they'll stop speeding. Anyhow, that's just my opinion, and I'm not a politician.
One of the concerns I have about the community safety zones was that the original intent was in places proximate to parks, playgrounds, schools, hospitals, that sort of thing. And part and parcel of the community safety zone is a doubling of any fines or that are levied as a result of infractions. I think the very people who are pushing back on this whole idea of automated speed enforcement will be the first to decry the creation of community safety zones all over the place as some kind of cash grab. And I want to avoid that argument if I possibly can, because that's not my intent. My intent is that we create a safe environment for people, traveling on our roads. It's not to make money. I'd like to break even, obviously, with any efforts we do. But I can just see people howling from the rafters that, well, you've created a community safety zone because you want to double fines.
So sounds like a good survey you could put on the website.
So true.
Yep, and let them speak now or forever hold their peace. Okay, moving on. Cheyenne, false alarms, lots of them.
Hi. Okay. So the last report showed 27 total false alarms. I will have for you at the next meeting all the data for the year and what we've got out of it. That's all I
Hey,
have.
that was a pretty high month. I wonder if was there environmentally something going on, or it seemed like an awful lot of false alarms. Um, I saw a couple multiples of the same place. Hopefully they'll catch the drift at some point. But even on Starview up the street here, I saw that there was a house alarm there. Anyway,
And when sorry, when the their address comes in on the one report, they just get one letter for those two, like if there's a multiple. So it's not as if we're able to fine them or charge them because it's just all on one report. And I guess it was decided by Mark that it's not fair to give them a second warning when the first warning they weren't aware of at the time it happened. If that makes sense.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense because you're only getting the report quarterly. If they were coming in on a regular basis or on a more monthly or biweekly or something like that, you maybe would have the opportunity to address that. I don't know whether there's a problem with increasing the frequency of when that report is generated, Chief.
Mr. Chair, what would, and I'll aim this at Cheyenne, like what would you like to see? What would work?
Monthly would be actually fantastic because then you could look back on that data from that month, send them the warning letter that if this is to continue, they will be fined. Whereas now, if you see when it's quarterly, someone who's had multiple false alarms, they get one letter for that when we could potentially be charging them back the time.
Okay, let me see what I can do. Brad Girdler is our admin person that looks after this. So let me see if I can get him to set something up where he can forward it to you monthly.
Yeah, I did used to get them monthly.
Okay, leave it with me.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. Okay, any questions for Cheyenne? Okay, a motion to receive the false alarm report. Wayne and John, all in favor, opposed, carried. And now, without further ado, Chief Ward. Speak.
Okay. If you're going to call me chief, I'm going to start calling you king.
Okay, well, I
King
was the chief, so
Walker. Hey,
you can
King
call me chief.
Walker.
You can call me chief too if you want. Just don't call me late for dinner.
Exactly. Okay, Mr. Chair, this will be the third quarter report for Mono 2022. I'm sure you've all had a chance to go through it. Excuse me. And so I'm not going to touch on everything. I'll touch on a few things that I've highlighted, and then if there's any questions at the end, we can deal with that. Going into the first, obviously, public complaints and secondary, excuse me, secondary employment. There's nothing. Moving into the billing summary, as you can see, we just kind of touch on the year-to-date stuff. Where we see an increase is in assaults, level 1 assaults. And again, I think that has a lot to do with more and more interactions are happening now that, there's no COVID, there's no anything going on. We seem to be having an uptake. And when you compare it to 2021, it's a large uptake in that whole assault area. And as you can see in the totals, that brings it up. Last year, in that whole violent crime section, there was 15, and this year to date, we're already up to 26. So it's something we definitely want to keep an eye on, but they're reactive calls. They're not proactive. There's nothing really that we can do to stop them. So it's something that's on our radar. Moving into the property crime.
Chief,
Sorry.
let me just ask a question on that. Now, are these mostly like residential, family type issues, or because we don't have that many bars where assaults could be taking place? What's the localities of these? Is there any patterns?
I'd have to go back and look. I don't have that information right now, but now that it flags, I'll definitely take a look and see what I can give you. But from my understanding, a lot of them are perhaps domestic related.
Right.
So moving into the property crimes violations, as you see, a bit of an uptake in the in break and enters. And again, right, last year at this time we had 8. This year we're up to 12. And again, we're finding a lot of traveling road shows, for lack of a better word, coming into our areas and committing criminal offenses. And we're very fortunate that our community street crimes unit has been on top of it. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of the press releases that have gone out where they've had a lot of apprehensions and good investigations and success, especially when it came lately to the stolen vehicle end of things. They just did one, not in Mono, but still in Dufferin, where they recovered 7 stolen vehicles. So, I mean, a lot of good work being done. It's just unfortunate that these traveling road shows have found us up here now, and even when we were talking about the speeding and the different things going on, and even Larry made the comment, like it's GTA now. Mono is not secluded anymore, and GTA is moving in, and with them brings a lot of police issues. So, again, what we see, it's nice to see a downslide in the theft of gasoline. Last year at this time there was 26, and this year we're only at 10. So it's nice to see that going down. Again, going through the other thing that, everything else, the calls for service that I'm looking at and comparing to last year are very consistent. Mischiefs are equivalent. When you come to the total of property crimes for that third quarter, a decrease, 104 last year and 87 this year. So it's nice to see that overall call for service going down. But some of the ones that were, the break and enters and that kind of stuff, that they're concerning because they deal with actual invasion of people's private property, and that's something we look at. Criminal code violations. Again, when you look at overall, last year with 21, this year we're down to 12. So again, a downtake in those type of calls. It's nice to see. Drugs are equivalent. Last year there was 3 and this year 3. So again, that's consistent. Mental Health Act, which is one of the ones that, we're always watching throughout the county. Year to date, 10. We're still down as far as overall when we look at that mental health, trespass to property stuff, we're down. Last year 64, this year 50. So again, those calls for service are down. A lot of it, I give a nice shout out. We have our mental health crisis unit up and running now with our partnership with Headwaters. We actually have 2 crisis nurses that work with our mental health officers. And, again, they've been busy. But those crisis calls that they're able to get to, there's been, and again, and Mr. Chair, you'll agree, we're kind of jack of all trades when it comes to, we have a little bit of training in this, a little bit of training in that, and the mental health piece. And so it's nice to be able to have these crisis nurses out there that we don't grab onto that person and just automatically take them to the hospital. And with those crisis nurses, they're able to make an assessment right at the scene. And sometimes they avoid having to go to the hospital, that they get referred to a local partnership, and they're able to get the help that they need and circumvent that hospital route, which ties up resources and ties up the staff at the hospital. So if we can avoid that, we're kind of winning that battle, I hope. Moving on, as you can see, and again, it's down a bit, but it's still a lot of numbers in that domestic disturbance stuff, which also corresponds with those assaults, right? 37 year to date, 41 last year, but it's still a high number. And that's where a lot of those assault investigations come into play as well. We continue to see, get those calls for suspicious persons. And again, it's, you have the people that have lived in the community a long time, and they see a person they don't recognize, and they're calling it into police, which is good. We encourage that. But with that whole transient population that's coming through now, I mean, a lot of it's unfounded. Moving on, the other thing I have flagged, the noise complaints. Again, consistent with last year, but again, year to date, 22, last year, 23. And the same with suspicious vehicles, consistent to last year, down a bit. Year to date, 40 calls. Last year at this time, we had 48. So, and then when you come into the total, again, last year at this time in that category, we had 479 calls, and this year down to 385. So again, a reduction in calls. We touch on the whole false alarms, and as you can see, there's an increase in that this year. Last year at this time, 40, this year 67. So there is definitely an uptake. So we can definitely look at breaking that down to monthly, and maybe trying to bring that number down as well. Good to see that our 911 calls and hang-up calls are down. And again, 29 last year, only 15 this year. So it's nice to see that taking a dive. Where we do see an increase is our motor vehicle collisions. And again, a lot more traffic moving. It used to be, Fridays we'd see them going north, and Sundays we'd see them coming south. Now, and I'm sure Larry can attest, any day that ends in Y, we see traffic. So that leads to an increase in collisions as well. I try to give our traffic people like Larry a good shout out. We've been leading the region in our enforcement over our long weekend campaigns. which is kind of a nice shout out to these people. They're working hard. The stats show it. And the big number I looked at was the zero, and the zero was fatalities. And unfortunately, we still held that zero over the long weekends, which was nice. But unfortunately, over the last little bit, we got hit with a couple collisions that caused some fatalities, and it's always sad when we have those fatalities and we have to deal with them. But I mean, again, a shout out to our traffic people and our platoon members that held the zeros over those long weekends, which was nice. So again, when you look at overall calls for service to this point, we're down again a bit, not huge, but down overall. You know, last year at this time we had 879 calls, and this year we're at 900 or 793. So a bit of a decline, which is good, but still basically consistent year to year. The records management system, again, when you look at it, it's consistent with the billing statement. So I mean, and we're not going to go into it, but we show an uptake in assaults, which we just talked about, an uptake in break and enters, which we just talked about. Thefts are down, which is nice. Drug crimes are again consistent from year to year. This next form is just the overall charges for Dufferin County in the third quarter. And again, it just shows the good work being done. When you look at overall in that third quarter, 3,485, so just under 3,500 charges laid in Dufferin County in a 3-month period. So that's a lot of work being done. And again, it irks me, and I'm sure Mayor Creelman will, it irks him too when we talk about how many of those charges don't get processed. And again, that's not my concern. My concern is that my officers are out there doing their job and doing the work, but it's kind of frustrating when the back end doesn't catch up, right? So moving into to the part ones, and again, you can see a nice uptake there between Larry and our entire detachment. You see, July, August, September, a lot of big numbers being written in Mono. And again, we're on track to beat last year. And not that it's a competition, but it just shows that there's a lot of enforcement being done. Part threes as well. In August, I think Larry had way too many days off because the numbers dropped a bit, but then rebounded in September. So it's nice to see that heavy enforcement piece. But again, it's that education piece that we throw out there as well. The traffic file control registry, again, just shows the accidents and the collisions and incident types and primary causes. And again, it's a bag of a little bit of everything being used to cause these primary cause of these accidents. Just a map on where occurrences are happening as far as accidents go, and you can see it's consistent with location. And our collisions next is that chart showing the collisions, and again, it shows an uptake. 93 last year at this time, and we're up to 124. And again, but again, we're consistent with the zero on the fatalities in Mono, and that's what we want. Larry's enhancement stats, and again, I'm not going to go through all of that, but as you can see, an uptake in his numbers as well, which is nice. July 177, August 163, and September 176. And all I can say to that is Larry's a machine.
If I could make some comments, Your Worship.
Oh, certainly. You speak to the chair. You speak to the chair, Larry, not to the worship. You speak to the.
He did. He aimed it finally to you. He aimed it to you.
You're all important.
Yeah.
There you go.
I was astonished by the number of people. I did a lot of enforcement in hockey by the school that actually pass. I just shake my head. People are going along at 55, which is quite acceptable, and they're being passed. Well, I just don't know what they're thinking when they're passing in front of a school. But anyway, that's another matter. So a lot of work was there. A lot of cars and motorcycles were towed on Hockley. And I went back over to the Mono Amaranth Town line, which I haven't put a lot of effort into lately. And I think what's happening there now, I'm actually getting 155s and 160s in a 70, which is atrocious. And when you talk to the people, there are people coming from Shelburne that have moved up from Brampton, type in the GPS, and that's their shortest route back down to the city to go to work every day for an hour and a half drive. And I've towed numerous vehicles in the last month at 150 on in a 70, which again, you shake your head at. So it's getting quiet now. The cold weather's here. Hopefully things will slow down, but those are two of the high areas. Now back to the Airport Road area. I have found it very quiet. The high speeds that you do get, 140s, it's when they're passing or coming down that big hill south of 30th, south of 89. But you don't see lone vehicles going much over 100. That's my experience. It's very quiet over there. Other than that, we'll just keep. Sorry?
Yeah, I had our Lions Club vice president paid a compliment to you. He was shocked at how efficient you were when you pulled him over for speeding on Highway 10. He said that you got his license and he saw you coming back about 40 seconds later, and you had already had the ticket done. He said he never thought how efficient the system was.
Well, that's because it's cutting into my coffee time.
That's
I
right.
got to get the work done so I get back to Tim Hortons.
Yeah, well,
No,
don't ever try to go to Royal LePage for any deals. So.
The computers have sped it up a lot. You got the printer now, and you've got the card swiping for the license, so everything's much more efficient.
I
faster.
wouldn't know because I don't get stopped. Thank God. I went out yesterday. I went out yesterday with my wife's MX-5 that had only been out once this year, and I went up and across Mono Center and down Airport Road and then back across Hockley. And I agree, Larry. People aren't driving that fast on Airport Road anymore. I've been driving on it quite a bit, and it's amazing how normal people are driving.
I used to go over there back in the spring in the rush hour in the mornings, and I had no problem getting 5 or 6 tickets. Now I can sit there and I won't even get one. So that's a good thing.
Yep, for sure.
That's a good thing.
Well, keep up.
But the residents,
good work.
especially your worship directed to you, especially the one in the 50 zone at Hockley and Airport there on Hockley, they're really, really appreciative of what you did there.
Yeah, that was a bit of a battle with the county roads department because they did not want to lower that speed limit in approach to the intersection with Airport Road, and we actually had to bring it to a vote because their staff were dead set against it. And I've heard nothing but good things from the people who live in that area, and it makes sense. I mean, it's twisting and turning and it's approaching a very busy intersection. It just made sense that it be dropped down 10 kilometers per hour.
Exactly. And there's a lot of people that walk there daily too.
Yeah.
So it's a huge difference.
And I'm not one who espouses reductions in speed limits for the most part, but there are places where I think they're called for.
Yes. Other than that, we're trying to keep a lid on it.
Larry, I have a question. Is it hard for you to deal with tailgaters? Because on Highway 10, that's one of the things that drives me absolutely crazy.
Yes, it is. And the problem, one of the big problems on Highway 10, everybody says, oh, geez, you can go out there, you could just get everybody. Well, no, you can't stop them. That's the problem. You've got, like if I'm sitting on the side of Highway 10, let's just say south of Camilla facing north, and they're coming southbound, but I can't get out because there's too much northbound traffic. That's the problem. But what I'm seeing on that subject, I'm seeing a lot of commercial motor vehicles that are following too close, dump trucks and cement trucks, because there's actually, there's a specified distance they have to stay back, being a commercial motor vehicle. Where a car, it's a judgmental thing. But with the commercial motor vehicles, there's a certain distance, and that's something I'm clamping down on.
Yeah, no, I was just curious because I don't know. One of those personal pet peeves with me is that I just find it so
Yep.
dangerous.
Oh, I know. It's very frustrating, but
I just wondered how difficult it was for you
very
guys
difficult.
to deal
Yes.
with it. See how it would be.
It's the same as the complaint of the, as your worship will attest to, the noisy motorcycles. Now,
Yep.
people have come to be retired officers and they'll say, well, why aren't you laying this charge? Well, of a noisy motorcycle. Well, what do I have to compare it to? I'm going to come to court and say it was noisy. You're going to come to court and say, well, no, it's not noisy in my view. There is a decibel and a meter tool that you can have, but I don't have that tool.
We don't have one.
I know Caledon does, the bylaw officer in Caledon does, when he goes to the Forks of the Credit. I don't have that, so I can't take a decibel reading, and I can't bring that to court. So that's another problem.
I mean, yeah, and I know there's criteria around where that decibel reader has to be distance-wise, right from the muffler and all
Yes.
that as well.
Exactly, yes.
Whole process too that goes with, even if you have the tool, it has to be
Yeah.
used properly. Yeah.
You're right.
Anyway,
yes.
Did we have the aircraft at all this year?
No.
No, because like last year we had the aircraft did some work in Mono.
Yeah, that'd be something maybe for next summer to look into.
Are you getting a motorcycle, or did that happen yet?
So yes, we are. Unfortunately, the person we selected to go on the training got sick, got COVID the week of the training, so we missed the training. So we're online to get someone trained again in 2023, and fingers crossed it works out at that time. But yeah, we're still scheduled to get one. It's just unfortunate COVID reared its ugly head and kind of took that out of the play. So, but we still have a name on the list, and let's hope that the training works out. So,
you get an electric Harley? I said,
sorry?
You getting an electric Harley Davidson or?
Yeah, no, well, hopefully not. Hopefully we're getting a real one. But anyway, just to finish off this report, we've touched on the false alarms already, and we'll look at getting that to Cheyenne monthly. Action plan, just some of the action plan stuff. We continue to do some foot patrol in Mono. So year to date, we've got 44 and a quarter hours. Ride year to date 72 and a half, and you'll start to see that ramp up now as we enter the Christmas season. You'll start to see a bit more ride being done out there. Our mental health occurrences, as you can see there for the quarter, consistent, and year to date 39. Our arrests impaired by alcohol, again, consistent over the 3-month period, but year to date 19. So again, still a little bit frustrating that that number is as high as it is. People still aren't listening. So we'll see what happens over the festive season. And again, our auxiliary unit, they're small but mighty. And again, they put in a lot of time and do a lot of good work. And with the parades and different things that's coming up, they'll be putting in even more hours. So we're really appreciative of our auxiliary officers and the efforts and the contributions that they provide to the detachment are endless. So it's nice to give them a shout out every chance we get. Some of the stuff, just the media releases that I kind of think are important, and we're still getting some people that fall for that whole grandparent scam. So again, all we can do is continue to try and spread the word that scam is out there, and it's running strong in Dufferin, and we just hope that people will educate themselves and not fall for it. But we had another one this past week that people got kind of fell for it. So the sad part is they can get your name and Google you, and a lot of us are Googleable, and Googleable, is that a word? I don't know. Anyway, information comes up, and the minute they have that information about you, they can start to swindle you, right? And the elderly people, you know, that are Mike Walker's age, they start to fall for that stuff. And you're the only one that picked up on that, Mike. Anyway,
Yeah, and I get all my ducks cleaned too.
but anyway,
Yeah.
that they call up and they know, you know, that you have grandchildren, and they start to play the game, and unfortunately some seniors fall for it. So it's a sad but true event, and all we can do is continue to try to educate them not to fall for that. Labor Day, again, our long weekend traffic campaign. I again led the region in charges. Actually, I think we finished in the top in the province with the enforcement. I think there was only one HSD detachment that beat us. So again, a lot of good work, and it shows A, that our traffic volume is heavy, but B, that our officers are out there doing the enforcement piece. So it speaks highly to them. And again, a shout out to all the officers at Dufferin for the hard work that they do. And again, we had in that quarter, we had a commercial motor vehicle blitz as well, and very successful there as well. And now we have an officer on our traffic team that's is a certified commercial motor vehicle inspector. So it's nice to have that tool in the toolbox that we can use when available to dig into some of these trucks that are in violation. So barring any questions, Mr. Chair, that's my third quarter report.
Very good. I note this weekend at the Ag Center is the Christmas show on Saturday. Last year, the traffic was backed up on Hockley Road all the way out, almost to Highway 10 with so many people going. So, and this year, they're about 3 times as big in the number of exhibits at the show than last year. So there won't be any speeding on Hockley Road on Saturday because they'll be parked on Hockley Road. So don't park there, Larry. Any other questions?
Larry says he's going to take the day off then.
Yeah, right. Like last year we tried to go and we couldn't even get onto Fifth Side Road because there were so many cars. John?
Just to follow up to something that Terry mentioned, having to do with what happens when these charges hit the courts. It's not on our agenda, but I have had the habit of updating people as to what's occurring in our courts, or more appropriately, what's not occurring. There are still too many court days being canceled, either in advance or last minute, due to a lack of judicial resources, which is short form for vacancies that have not yet been filled. And even if all 35 or 40 vacancies province-wide are filled tomorrow, it will be anywhere between 8 to 10 months before those justices will be unleashed in the courtroom. So it's a terribly run process. They've made no effort to improve it. And the last minute cancellations have become notorious, not just in Orangeville, but throughout the province. The other thing that is occurring, and Terry and will be well aware of this, is that charges are being dumped, and I use the word dumped, from the court dockets as a matter of expediency. And it's not uncommon now to walk into a POA courtroom and they have 1,000 or more charges, Part 1 charges, for the most part, that they literally are dumping. And we're not unique. I spoke to a colleague, a former colleague who sits in Newmarket, and he says it happens every other day there. So these are matters that the prosecutors are dumping. In their judgment, they are going to exceed the Supreme Court of Canada timeline for a timely trial. In some instances, they're 2 or 3 years old. And the backlog is building up. The other thing that I've heard is that, and this is very, very troubling, and I feel another letter coming on to the Attorney General about all these things, is that many of the Part 3 charges, more serious charges, they too could be in peril due to a transfer of prosecutorial authority from Crown offices to the local municipal prosecutors. And I don't know for a certainty that this is happening locally, but I have heard rumors that in order to get the attention of the municipal prosecutors for Part 3 matters, there have been suggestions made, well, why don't we just lighten the load a little bit by basically dumping those charges as well. And that is really, really troubling. So things are not getting better. They're actually getting worse on the POA side.
And on that happy note, any questions to John on that?
If I could just make a reply to that, Your Worship. Yeah, the Part 3s by and large are the stunt drivers, and I would say the ones that I have, almost 100% are guilty pleas. The reason for that is, as you may know, under the new legislation that is a year old now, it's a severe penalty and a severe license suspension. So rather than proceed with the stunt driving, they'll take a guilty plea to a very, very high rate of speed and a very high fine. So that's actually working out very well, that part of it, the Part 3 part, I find. So that's some good news.
Yeah, I guess on that, Larry, as long as they're not being pled down to ridiculously low speeds or the exceptionally high speed stunts, the prosecutor is holding firm on those. I understand perfectly what they need to do to keep the system working, and obtaining those pleas is not necessarily a bad thing, but it could become problematic if people who are, traveling, 150, 160 kilometers per hour are allowed to get off lightly. I mean, that's just my take on it.
Yes, no, I agree with you, but it does seem to be working because I get all the convictions. They email me the convictions, and it does seem to be working with the Part 3s, due largely to the high fines and the suspensions. It's a 1-year suspension now, so hopefully it'll work out.
Yeah, Part 3s don't have a set fine per se, but and a shout out to our prosecutors. They're doing the absolute best they can under very, very difficult circumstances.
Yes, and they've had I was there a couple of weeks ago in court, and they're bringing back JPs that have retired years ago. I guess they're just so short they have to bring them back. So.
Well, Mayor of Caledon and myself proposed to the government that they actually make an adjustment to the pension regulations to enable retired justices to return to court and preside without penalty to what they would earn on a per diem basis. We never got a clear answer on that. They did it for the judges to clear up criminal backlog, but if they were to do it for justices of the peace, they'd get a lot of people back in courtrooms. There would never be another reason why a court had to be closed, frankly, if they harness the some 70 or 80 retired justices who are still presiding part-time.
I see.
That's a province-wide figure.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion to accept the OPP oral report. Wayne, seconded by John. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. I'm just going to discuss that the billing statement under this as well. Just a comment that it looks like our billable hours in that statement are less than in previous years. So that's good news, even though the cost of policing is going up. It's not costing the citizens of Mono significantly large amounts of money, and it's like about $350 ish a household, which isn't too bad. 40 of which is Larry. That's a month. So it's good value, and we're really doing well with the OPP within the town of Mono. Okay. Did we ever have any correspondence, Cheyenne?
Nope,
No.
nothing
Okay.
has come in. Nope.
Okay.
No.
Other than the stuff that we discussed under the different items for status updates. Okay. The appointment of a chair for 2023. So my term is up with the new council. So I don't know what the new council will be doing, but until that's decided, we still need to have an interim chair. So any proposals for nominations for the position of chair?
I was going to say that my term is up too, and my appointment was in May of 2020, and I was sworn. I took the oath June 2nd, so mine is up before our even our second meeting. Well, I'm not sure what happens in provincial appointee, but just to make you aware of that as well. So
Yeah, and this is going to be interesting because if we move to the 3M board, we'll still need a nominee from one nominee for Mono Mulmer Melanchthon, so they'll have to post that. So I can't see them filling your seat for a six-month period, given the
right.
fact that there may not be that seat. So they could extend you. I don't know. I don't know what the
Yeah,
province will do, or whether they're even thought of that, which would
right.
not surprise me. So I'm willing to stand for now until and maybe I'll be selected to stay on. Who knows?
Yeah, well, that sounds good to me.
Mr. Mayor, what do you say?
Just for the record, we take the position that the membership of committees and our appointments to committees basically continue on into the new term of council until such time as reconsidered. So it's not that with the new term of council, every committee and every appointment becomes vacant. There is an assumption that they will continue soldiering on until we decide to either change or confirm those memberships.
Yeah, that's my understanding, and that's last time it was the same situation for me because this is my third or second, I can't remember, but yeah, I will continue on if that's what the board wishes.
Yep. I think, yeah, I
Okay.
nominate Mike. Support you
I
in
second.
your role.
Okay, all in favor? I'm abstaining. Carried. Okay. Meetings for next year, I'm looking at February the 8th, June 14th, September 13th, and November 15th. Basically, it's the same weeks as this year, just with the different date change. And that'll be at 1 o'clock on Wednesdays, and to be determined, but whether it's in person or virtual. In a few years ago, Deputy Mayor, what was his name? McGee? Yeah. He wanted some evening meetings. I don't know what the wishes would be, but I think the 1 o'clock is just as easy because it means Terry doesn't have to stay late.
I like the afternoon time as well.
Yeah.
I have an
Okay.
obligation Wednesday in the evening, so this helps. So
Okay. Motion to approve the dates as suggested. Larry, pardon me, Larry. Wayne, yeah, Larry, you're not voting. Forget it. Seconded by John. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Any new business? Any other new business?
can I ask one question? Like as the provincial appointee, will I just if I'm not replaced, which you said they may not because of the circumstances around which when I got into this role it was starting, so this is how quick things move. It's with the bureaucracy of the governments, but would I just remain in the role until replaced? Is that what's happened in the past, or
It's good question, Wayne, because we did have one provincial appointee that was on the board, and her term had ended, but they never replaced her, and nobody ever told her. So she remained. This was Mrs. Teeter, and she remained on the board, but in fact she wasn't the appointee, but they just never replaced her. And there's a few boards have not had a provincial appointee for years because they just never filled them.
oh, okay.
So the bottom line is that the order in council, you're an order in council appointment, and the appointment ends on whatever the date is, and you can go online and under the public appointee secretariat and see what your what the date is, but unless they come to you and say they're extending it. But it's a good question that we should maybe. I could send an email to Mr. Sprague and ask him that question,
Okay.
and I'll get back. I'll get back to you offline on that.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, it's actually quite interesting. When the detachment board model was being debated early stages, the Association of Ontario Municipalities put in a submission to the effect that they felt very strongly that our locally appointed citizenry could handle that perspective. And they pointed out at the time that at any given moment, something like 25-30% of all of the provincial appointment positions province-wide were vacant. So, that wasn't a particularly good figure to indicate that the province had an interest in maintaining the notion of their own citizen representation on the board. We've been, I think, very fortunate to have, really good representatives, both appointed by council and by the province on the board over the years, in my experience. But if the province can't keep up with these appointments, there's a problem.
Exactly. Okay, I'll follow up with the Solicitor General on that and get back to everybody with whatever their response is. Okay, so our next meeting will be Wednesday, February the 8th at 1 o'clock, and be virtual at the moment, but if there's any change, we'll amend that. Motion to confirm the proceedings of the meeting of the Mona Police Services Board held on Wednesday, November 16th, 2022. Wayne, and seconded by John. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And a motion to adjourn our final meeting of 2022. John, and seconded by Wayne. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks, James, Terry, Larry, Mo, Curly, Cheyenne, everybody.